It's the Soundcore Motion X600. It's a speaker that keeps on giving. It's called the Motion X600 because obviously it's the successor to the widely popular X599. No, it wasn't. We didn't have any. I would have called it the Motion X69. Yes, let's get that out of the way. Don't know why it's called the X600. Somebody somewhere thought, that is really, really catchy. Almost like measles. And we're going to do that. We're going to market that as the X600 rather than the, something else that it could have had. Holy Grail. I would have called that the Motion X, not them. I would call that the Motion Soundcore. Holy Grail. Wouldn't that be? We're always after the Holy Grail speaker. Isn't it weird? With all the money these marketing people get, nobody's actually called a speaker the Holy Grail. If we now find a speaker called the Holy Grail, I'm going to sue. So what's happened now? I'm going to tell you what's happened. It's a speaker that goes on giving. It's almost 3 days or something like that since we had the last Motion X600 firmware. Now, let's not forget, this is the speaker widely recognised by respected reviewers as being the best speaker they ever heard, whether it's compared to a £2,000 home theatre speaker or at $200 or something reasonable or like one of the best, but certainly one of the best. So it was already one of the best, apparently. And do you know what they did? They thought, they're going to make it even better. We're going to change our default EQ. They changed the default EQ. They called it 4.2.8. And they said they have enhanced the default EQ. It turned out, enhanced it for the sound engineer, or the software engineer, whoever it is that does this thing. But they stuck in a 4 kilohertz. They boosted the bass. They stuck in a 4 kilohertz peak. None of us can remember actually asking for that 4 kilohertz peak. But in their testing, however they come up with these EQs, they decided that was a good thing. Then turned out, not everybody was that happy with it, and they said they're going to fix it. And I woke up in the morning, and it said not 4.2.8, it said 4.29. And we're going to have to get used to this, guys. They're not fixing bugs anymore. It was getting boring, bugs. But now, for the second time, consecutively for firmware updates, update the default EQ to enhance audio performance. It's going to be even better. Remember, it was already applauded or lauded as best ever. And they thought, do you know what we'll do? We'll change how it sounds. And they boosted the bass. They added a 4 kilohertz peak. And now, apparently, they're saying they fixed it. Now I'm saying they say they fixed it rather than enhance it, because that's what you guys are telling me, who contacted Soundcore support, who weren't that happy with it. Remember, whatever the EQ is, someone's going to like it, someone isn't. So I'm not saying I know what's a good or bad EQ. I can say to me, just like you will do when you listen, does that make sense or it doesn't? Was that a good thing or it wasn't? That's all I'm doing, telling you guys the changes that I find and my personal opinion. I'm not trying to tell anybody what's right and wrong in audio. But like all of us, we have our opinions and we'll spread them on and debate it. That's all we're doing. So they decided, you told me support said they're going to fix it. So not enhance, they said they're fixing it. So apparently they didn't think it was that great. So we've already waffled. That's the information they gave us, 4.2.9. Remember, we seem to have 2 series of EQs running together, or firmwares running together, 3.x.x and 4.x.x. On some of their speakers, notably the Motion Plus, we know that. Different firmware, the 75XX, I believe, is different chip to previous models, will not pair with them. Where's the publicity on that? And we know they're giving it a different firmware number. It's a different hardware. I noted bass distortion. Some of you out there have noted it, and other people are saying theirs is distortion free. However, I will say, recorded it before, recorded it after. Nothing changes before and after. It's just to show you what is happening. To make this easier and just to make this realistic, I'm only doing spatial mode because that's the only mode people seem to be listening in, and I'm doing it bass off, bass on, and bass off. 50% volume. This is the any differences at all? This is what I found.
And you were so damn obsessed with making me a perfect lie. Makeup is out, naturals in, letting my skin glow out. You take it shit if you don't like this. You still live in your man's world. I'm not gonna spend the night. I'm talking. You got bad things on your mind. Keep walking. Spit your words on someone else. Don't act like you're so obsessed with me, with me. You know that I ain't coming back. I'm sorry. Read my lips, you do not like that. You're drowning without me. Take it all back, but if you want my sympathy, honey, well, come as a bitch, get ready for this. Get ready for this. You know that I ain't coming back. I'm sorry. Read my lips, you do not like that. You're drowning without me. Take it all back, but if you want my sympathy, honey, well, come as a bitch, get ready for this. Get ready for this.
So bass off, the difference now is, yeah, that 4 kilohertz peak, which was, I think we can agree, pretty awful, has now gone. But along with that reduction of a huge peak, we've got an overall reduction in the mids and the highs relative to around 700 hertz. So the difference now between before and after is huge in terms of how you will perceive that bass. If you're just going from one to the other, you're going to hear a big difference in the volume, but once you adjust for that volume, it's going to sound more bass heavy. Bass on, again, we've got a big bass boost, and we've got the same reduction in the mids and the highs, and the removal of the 4 kilohertz peak, and we must wonder why it was ever there. So differences before and after, quite dramatic.
So not my words. I'm repeating some of the words that you guys are telling me in the comments that Soundcore support have said to them. Is they fixed whatever issues they didn't like about the... So what we know is they've removed that 4 kilohertz peak. Why was it ever there? Was that a slip of the hand? Really? I mean, come on. Why was it ever there if it lasted one firmware in a few days? Okay, again, this is my opinion, okay? I'm not preaching to anybody. The result of what they've done also is, so they've kept the bass boost that we got. 4.21 had a lot less bass in both bass on and bass off, and we got a bass boost in both modes on 4.2.8. They've kept that for 4.29, and they've reduced the mids and the highs. I did something very similar. Coincidence or not, I don't know. I did something very similar on my very first video on the Motion X600, catchily named. Why did I do that? I said in the time, on my unit, I'm not saying it's on everyone's unit, but certainly on some units, people are complaining about bass distortion. You can hear the woofers bottom out, and it's distorting. To solve that, I had to reduce the headroom of the bass, and I did that by bringing down mids and highs. So relatively, you're getting more bass without actually pushing bass. What's the result of that? You lose volume, as you can hear there. So the result of what they've done, the mids and the highs, they've reduced that, you've got more bass, but you've lost volume. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to do in a minute, compare them normalised, loudness match to really hear the differences. My point being, that's the opposite of what I was trying to achieve when I did my dropping of the mids and highs. I did that so I had more headroom on the bass and I wasn't getting the distortion. I could push bass more. But they've done that while keeping the bass boost they already have. So that's my issue there. Obviously, we've lost volume. That's so you can't really compare just at the same volume because they're no longer loudness matched. So here they are, loudness matched.
And you were so damn obsessed with making me a perfect lie. Makeup is out, naturals in, letting my skin glow out. Yeah, take it shit if you don't like this. You still live in your man's world. I'm not gonna spend the night. I'm talking. You got bad things on your mind. Keep walking. Spit your words on someone else. Don't act like you're so obsessed with me, with me. You know that I ain't coming back. I'm sorry. Read my lips, you do not like that. You're drowning without me. Take it all back, but if you want my sympathy, honey, well, come as a bitch, get ready for this. Get ready for this. You know that I ain't coming back. I'm sorry. Read my lips, you do not like that. You're drowning without me. Take it all back, but if you want my sympathy, honey, well, come as a bitch, get ready for this. Get ready for this.
So there you go. It makes more sense when you actually hear them loudness matched. But obviously we're playing the 4.2.9 louder, or 3.2.9 if that's what you're on. It should sound the same, but I don't know if that's the case because in my first video I said, Soundcore, you're probably not watching, but if you are, send me a an X600 that's got 3XX, and then I can see if there's a difference. I've been talking about my bass distortion, and maybe if you sent me a 3XX, I can say nicer things. Remember, just recall, someone said to me, in fact, it was you, Dexter, wasn't it? And that's fine. I like these comments because, you know, that's how we discuss and debate things and put things out in the open. And said to me, you've been bad-mouthing the X600. I don't think I have been, and I don't want to come off as bad-mouthing it. What I'm trying to do is put a lot of misinformation out. I've never seen so much misinformation on a speaker out there. That's all I'm doing. I'm just a geezer trying to YouTube and chill out while I'm doing it. Give my honest opinion, right or wrong, as I always say. I'm not saying I'm right. So right or wrong, I just want to give my opinion. So there was definite bad information out there that I wanted to put right and give my opinion on this. I think it's overhyped. Yes, I think it's a little bit overpriced, but obviously they've put a lot of research and development into this. There are design elements that are really nice, the way they've designed it with waveguides to separate the woofers and the tweeters. This is very, very nice. That costs money. It's an all-metal housing, not plastic. That costs money. I just think the sound I get, for me, is a little bit overpriced. For me, guys, again, I've said it in every video. I think this can do nice things. There is, and I do like, it sounds quite nice. I can understand how people will like spatial audio. But for me, once that novelty of the spatial audio has worn off, I don't like the nature of the speaker. It's a bit bright, a bit brittle, a bit thin for me, but very, very punchy for me. I'm not saying everybody take me as the Holy Grail. I'm clearly not the Holy Grail, but I do have a right to give my opinion. So I'm not bad-mouthing it. There are nice things. It does sound nice, but I just think a lot of people are describing it in the wrong way, and it's quite misleading. And for me, there's no secret. I like a warm sound signature. I like an extended deep bass. This hasn't got an extended deep bass. This has a lot of mid bass punch. If that's what you like, you're going to love it. So I'm not bad-mouthing it. I want to put that out there. I really don't want to come off that way. What I'm doing is firmware updates where I tell you this is what's changed. That's the whole point of me existing, to tell you. I will always do these videos, no matter what anyone says to me, to tell you what's changed, because that's what I wanted before I started doing videos and I was watching other people's videos. That's partly why I resulted in me being here. Some of the information that I personally would need wasn't getting done. And people weren't doing firmware follow-ups. I'm only doing them, obviously I've got so many speakers now, I can't do them on every speaker. But the ones that remain relevant to me and you, mostly, I'm doing the firmware updates. This is clearly one of the buzz speakers out there right now. It's very, very relevant. I'm doing firmware updates. I will continue to do that, no matter what anyone says to me. So in my opinion, they've gone too far with the dropping the mids and highs. That wasn't what I was trying to achieve in the first one. They've pushed the bass and then reduced mids and highs. That's not what the point of what I was doing in my first video. But some people will love it. If you wanted more bass, you've certainly got a more bass-heavy sound. So again, one of those firmware updates. Look, they've got rid of the 4 kilohertz peak. Good, I'm pleased about that because that was really harsh on the ears. Now it's going to be a matter of your taste versus mine. That clearly we've lost volume headroom, and it's a very smooth. For me, they've gone too far. It's a bit too smoothed over. I already told you where I am at the bass, but if you want a more bass heavy sound, you got it. Job done. What's the ultimate headroom? We go to maximum volume. Oh dear. No, it's still working. We go to maximum volume. We know already we've lost the volume, but how much volume have we lost? Let's have a look.
So, absolute headroom now, bass off. The difference is, well, we've actually got a tad more upper bass, otherwise the bass is exactly the same, but we've got a big drop in overall volume, of course, because the 4 kilohertz peak has gone and the mids and highs are reduced anyway. But yes, that will be smoother to your ears. And again, with bass on, as you can see, there's a bit more bass there. Again, tad more upper bass on 4.2.9, but big drop in overall volume because we don't have those peaks anymore, and we've got a drop in the mids and the highs. Easier on your ear, but if you really wanted that volume, it's now gone. But that is the ultimate difference between old firmware and new firmware.
For me now, I can only play it with bass off. It's just too bass heavy. You know, now we're dropping the mids and highs, and with the bass boost for bass up, it's too bass heavy. Just too many issues now with them distorting, bottoming out. So I'm always bass off, me personally. So we have lost the volume. We knew we'd lost the volume. It's easier on the ears, but if you wanted that extra volume, you've lost it. But if you found it unplayable because it was too harsh, that problem's now gone. I just think they've gone too far, dropping the mids and highs. It only needs tweaking at this point. So I think for a lot of people, they will probably love the 4.2.9 versus the other firmwares because it's a more solid sound. It just needs tinkering with, I would say. But for me personally, because of my unit, I would drop that. If I got the chance of tuning it, I would drop the amount of bass boost we are getting because I can only use it with bass off. So I think basically the two firmwares are extreme opposites. We've got piercing, but maximizing volume on 4.2.8, and they've got smooth sound, but we've lost all volume and probably too much of the highs for me. But for some people, I think they will actually prefer that, especially if you do not play at maximum volume. If you've never played, say, 90% and above, happy days. You're not even going to know that difference has gone.
Well, what does that mean?
Or has come about, not gone. So where are we?
Oh my God, stop, bro, I'm stuck. Can you help me?
4.2. So we started at 4.2.1. We're now at 4.2.9. The biggest difference now between these three quickfire firmwares has been they've boosted the bass from the original tuning, which apparently was the best speaker ever. Why? I don't know. When some, maybe it's a handful, but some people, and I am one of those, was already getting bass distortion and it was an issue, and then they boosted it. So for me, it made it even worse and not really listenable, not really practical as a one solution speaker, if that's where you are. So they've doubled down on that, they've kept it. They've dropped the mids and the highs, but they've kept the bass. That's why it doesn't work for me, because of that issue. But yes, now much smoother, much easier on the ears if you're not getting bass distortion. But I think they've gone too far. I think, especially when you've got bass up on, it's verging on muffled. So I would just say, if anybody cares at this point and is still listening, you've only got to tinker with those highs a little bit to bring some of that clarity back. I'm seeing on my now they get a lot of variance on these units. For me, I'm getting a drop. I think I can't even see it on this thing. It's around 6 kilohertz. There's a bit of a cutout. So maybe that's something for them to think about. Just playing around, not sticking a big boost up, but playing around with that 6 kilohertz drop. But it's but keeping the width of it. It's not like it's not like a little pole coming down. There is a little bit of a dip, but it centered on 6 kilohertz is what I measured. So that's where we are. I would at least say maybe they should have, if they want to go with the bass boost, they should have just gone with that, and they could have left the mids and highs where it was. I don't know. My idea was, and I said to them, my idea is, if you're going to mess with the sound signature, when a lot of people are already liking it, I don't understand why you would mess with the sound signature at that point. You've already released it, a lot of people were liking it, and then you have completely changed that sound signature twice. Why would you do that? I would have said, nobody, I don't know. I don't have the stats, the data to say who uses the other presets. We've got Soundcore signature tuning as default. I don't know of anyone who actually uses any of those other presets. If that's really the case, and very few people are using those presets and it's just there to make the app look pretty, why not make these changes a preset? Label them as 4.2 or whatever. Just give people the option. If you're saying, well, we think actually this is a bit better, but some people did like the other one, why not just give it as a preset? Doesn't that make a lot of sense? Especially as now you can swap your EQs. You know, if you go into the full band thing, you can swap your EQs. That's quite cool. For me, first of all, I'm not going to mess with the EQ in any serious way until these firmwares settle. But when I have messed with it, for me, it's still limited. It's not a real parametric equalizer. The filters, there's not enough filters, and the width, the minimum width is too wide, so I can't tailor it to exactly how I want it. And that's it. What else am I talking about? I don't know how long I am. I know we're hours into these things. I'm just getting my money's worth. If I'm going to sit down, I might as well sit down till my drink's gone, isn't it? That's where we are. It turns out Soundcore have been watching some of these videos. What I will put out there is I'm a YouTuber. Okay, so I'm always going to make videos about speakers, whether it's Soundcore, Tribbit, all these JBL, W King. That's what I do. There's the clue. I'm not here just to answer other people's questions and not do a video telling you what's changed. They have changed it. Not everybody has got that. I see some people are still saying they're on 0.2, 0.1. I don't know, so I don't know why that is, but enough people have said they found they're on 4.2.9 that for me, that's gone live. I'm going to make the video. I'm always going to do that. I ain't going to change. I'm going to waffle. That ain't going to change. I'm going to say goodbye at this point. I think I've got the message over. I thank you for watching, if you're still watching. I hope I see you again in another video where we take on the world of audio. Thank you for watching.
What the was that?
It comes from China.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.
Yes, mine sounds exactly the same.